Guys, welcome to Crazy Burger. So recently we looked at the upcoming Evercade C64 Collection. It contains 14 games and admittedly not all of them are particularly Commodore 64 classics that we remember back in the day. There was a couple of games that you probably would say are classics, like the Bruce Lee game and Impossible Mission. But what I'm going to do is look at some games that I would like to see on future collections that will most likely come up through 2023, I would suspect. I'm going to look at games that we might not necessarily get, but they're games that I would love to see and I would consider them to be classic Commodore 64 games. Also going to look at a couple of homebrew games that I would also love to see. Without further ado, let's get started with the video. So guys, we're going to start with an all-time classic in Bubble Bobble. And the C64 version was absolutely fantastic. Here it's got that amazing soundtrack, got the playability, it's just an absolute classic. Obviously this was on many formats, but I in particular really enjoyed this version. It really is an excellent version, and it's probably one of the first Commodore 64 games I actually owned. It's absolutely fantastic. Would love to see this one day, you never know. Okay, if there's one game that I would absolutely love to see, this would be Creatures from Thalamus. Definitely up there and probably my top 3 Commodore 64 games of all time. I played this game a lot back in the day. It's a tricky little game. You play the sort of main character here is Clyde Radcliffe. And you've got sort of different formats, so you can obviously hold the fire button down to breathe fire, or you can just have the single sort of shot. And it's such an addictive little game. It looks fantastic for a Commodore 64 game. Interestingly enough, there was an Amiga version, but it was nowhere near as good as the Commodore 64 version. I absolutely love this game. This would make my day if we got this on Evercade. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, if there's an all-time classic on the Commodore 64, this would be it. Last Ninja 2. Now there was I think 3 in the actual series, and they're all pretty decent games. This is the one that probably sticks out the most. It's got that absolutely banging soundtrack as well. The controls are a little bit tricky, so I'm not sure how that would actually transfer to a D-pad, to be honest with you. But I really love this game. It's hard as nails right enough with the controls. It's kind of got that isometric sort of style. But it was an excellent game. I really enjoyed it, and it's definitely up there as being one of the best looking Commodore 64 games, the most playable ones. A lot of people certainly recognise this as one of the all-time classics that the Commodore 64 produced. Okay, so there is a little bit of a shortage of golf games on Evercade, and this would be one I'd love to see. It's the leaderboard series on the C64, which were absolutely brilliant. Now, this was before the PGA Tour golf games, we got in the Mega Drive and other formats, and even the sort of Tiger Woods series we eventually seen. This was fantastic. I played this a lot on the Commodore 64. It was really amazing stuff. I think we definitely need this type of golf game on the Evercade, and this would be a great place to start. This would be very well received, I think. It's absolutely brilliant. Look at that for a shot. Hopefully we see it. I think this is, obviously it does look a little bit rough, takes a little bit to sort of draw in the graphics, but what a game it is. Absolutely phenomenal. Mayhem in Monsterland, from the creators of Creatures, I believe, and this one came pretty late in the Commodore 64 original lifespan in 1993, and amazingly I did actually miss this at the time because I had moved away from Commodore 64 at the time, and what a shame because it's an absolutely amazing game. The amount of things that are going on in this game that is possible on the Commodore 64 is absolutely mind-boggling. They've got sort of loads of sort of dual scrolling in the backgrounds there. It's just parallax scrolling, sorry, and it's just absolutely wow. It's a great little playable game. You need to sort of collect all the magic, defeat the monsters, collect the magic, and then it sort of turns the style of the level to kind of a happy rainbow style graphics. It's really amazingly done, and I would absolutely love this to be seen by a wider audience out there, because this is definitely one of the all-time classic Commodore 64 games, and I don't think enough people probably have seen this or appreciate it, and it would be great if it got a platform on the Evercade. Okay, so we definitely have a few football games on Evercade, that's for sure, but we don't have Micro Pro Soccer from Commodore 64. It would be fantastic. You can see here you've actually got weather effects going on, which actually have a massive effect on the players sliding the tackle there. It's kind of funny, but yeah, this was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. It's not the perfect football game, but it's a fun game, and once you get used to the actual controls, I really enjoyed it. I played this quite a lot back in the day. It was probably the best football game on the Commodore 64. It was really that good. Okay, this is Paradroid on the Commodore 64, another recognised classic back in the day. Admittedly, I'm not really that good at this game, to be honest. I always seem to die and never really quite grasped how to actually play it. I know you need to sort of take over the other robots, so to speak. You can obviously shoot them and kill them, but you're actually supposed to manipulate them and take over them and progress through the level. But wow, it's definitely up there as a classic Commodore 64 title. And admittedly, it might even be better than the Amiga version as well. Okay, so we had Bubble Bubble, we really would have to have Rainbow Island as well. This was absolutely amazing. I love the soundtrack, it was really brilliant. The graphics are really nice and colourful for the Commodore 64. The playability is absolutely brilliant. It's obviously got some end-of-level bosses as well, which are kind of tricky. It does get pretty hard, but look at those graphics for Commodore 64. There was a few versions on pretty much every format. I played the NES version and really didn't think it was anywhere near as good as this one. So if we did get versions, we'd really love to see this one. I would absolutely love if we got Taito on board and got this game on the Commodore 64. It would be so good. Maybe obviously if we did get Taito, it's more likely we'd probably get the actual arcade versions, which obviously would be absolutely fine as well. Okay, so this one is probably highly unlikely, Speedball 2, because we already have the Bitmap Brothers collection and the Mega Drive version of Speedball 2, but I really personally enjoyed the Commodore 64 version. It's not as good graphically as the Amiga or the Mega Drive version, but it's got amazing playability, and admittedly I actually think this game is faster than any version that's been made for this. You can see it zips about at a great pace on the Commodore 64. It's really great. The playability is what this was all about, and I spent so many hours playing this game. It is just amazing. I lost a whole summer, I think, in 1992 playing this game. Absolutely amazing. I don't think we'll see it, but I still would really, really love to see it. You never know. So another Commodore 64 classic would be Stunt Car Racer, which is this kind of a strange 3D style racing game, and it is phenomenally good, but extremely tricky to actually master. And this was really good. I really enjoyed this back in the day. I remember picking this up on the budget label when it got released. I think it was the Kicks label. It was for about $3.99 at the time, and really thoroughly enjoying it. This is really just the practice levels. You generally would be racing against opponents, but it's so tricky. You obviously need to stay within the pathway there. If you fall off, you pretty much crash and you start all over again. It's great, it really is good. It looks pretty rough, but it's all about the playability here. Now admittedly I think the Amiga version was probably a little bit superior to this version, but if we could get the Commodore 64 version I would be completely chuffed and happy. Okay, so this game must be recognised as one of the all-time best games on Commodore 64. It's Turricane. Obviously there was a sequel and there was probably another one as well, but this was amazing on the Commodore 64. Absolutely amazing achievement. It's pretty close to the Amiga as well. The Amiga ones is probably the best versions to actually play, but this version, it stood out amazingly well. It was phenomenal. Very difficult, right enough. It's a platform sort of shooter in the style of your Metroid games, for example. This was amazing, absolutely amazing. Definitely a recognised classic. If you've never played it, go and try and find even the Mega Drive or SNES versions of these games. They were all pretty decent, but it must be played. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Okay guys, last on the list is Uridium, which is a kind of a scrolling left to right shooter. You can go back and forth. I wasn't particularly great at this game, to be honest, but it is recognised as being a Commodore 64 classic game, and I would love to see this on the Commodore 64. There was actually a NES version called The Last Starfighter, but it's nowhere near as good as this version. Now this is all the main games that I've played. I've probably missed quite a few, like even like IK Plus, which I absolutely loved as well. That really would be great. If we got System 3 on board, you never know, that would be included. But these are the main games that I think would be great to be included and are classic Commodore 64 games. What I'm going to look at in the next few minutes is homebrew games and games that I would love to see. These are games that have been made in the last few years that would be great on the Evercade. So now guys, we're going to look at homebrew games, and there's a great homebrew scene on the Commodore 64, starting with Doc Cosmos. Now this game is only a few years old, and I really enjoyed it. I discovered this fairly recently, and I've played it on lots of different handheld emulation devices and absolutely love it. It is pretty tricky, but it's got some great little effects here and there. You obviously crash land on your spaceship and you need to try and sort of collect keys and try and get a way back off. I guess you need to find the part for your ship to try and get off, but yeah, that's when things go a little bit wrong. You can see some of the crazy effects here that are going on, and it changes back and forth. You obviously need to collect keys. You can power up the character, as you'll probably see in a little minute. You can change back between the two different styles, which is really phenomenal. I'm not really sure how they managed to do this, but it's such a great achievement for a Commodore 64. You see you power up here and it sort of changes the graphic styles back and forth, and this is quite important as you go through the levels, because obviously if you're in one, it kind of changes, like ladders appear and don't appear, and it kind of becomes almost like a puzzle style platform game. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. It's one to definitely get your teeth stuck into. Okay, so this one is probably highly unlikely due to the obvious license issues here, but this game was actually released free on the Commodore 64 homebrew scene in the last few months, and it's really well done. It's obviously like a remake of an earlier sort of title, and you know, it's absolutely fantastic. It's a shooter, yeah, but it's really good. It's impressive for the Commodore 64. Your idea is to stop these ATs from sort of getting to the base. I guess there's 3 of them, and then it gets progressively more difficult as you go. It's really very well done. I would like to see it, but I think this one's probably highly unlikely. Okay, so this is Grad Picks, that was released fairly recently as well, and I really liked this game. I know it looks terrible. It's obviously a kind of a Picross style game, and basically you're just trying to make a picture based on the sort of clues on the left hand side of the screen and the size of the grid that you've got. It sounds terrible. It doesn't sound like a basis of a game, but honestly it is unbelievably addictive. It definitely gets your brain going and trying to solve that puzzle and create the picture. In this game there was actually 100 pictures to solve, and it actually took me a good few months to complete, but I could not stop playing this game. I really loved it. It was so good. There was obviously a few DLC packs released as well for it. I would love to see this. I'm not sure if you will, but it would be absolutely fantastic. I found this game thoroughly addictive. Loved it. Okay, another absolutely amazing game from Carlton Hanley is Millie and Molly. Now this game has actually been released on a few different formats now, such as Antstream and the Nintendo Switch, I believe. You can also switch between graphics on the Nintendo Switch version from like 16-bit graphics to 8-bit graphics, but this is the original Commodore 64 version, and it's a puzzle style game. Yep, it starts off stupidly easy where you really need to clear the screen of the objects, but this becomes a phenomenally difficult, frustrating, but yet amazingly addictive puzzle game, and it took me months to actually complete, but I loved it. Okay guys, this is obviously a column sort of rip-off style game. It's so well done though. It's called Pillars. Not really much else I can say about it, but it's a phenomenally great version of Columns on the Commodore 64. While we see this, I do not know, there may be some issues with the licensing, I guess, but it's so good. It's such a great version. I would love to see it. This was free to download on itch.io, and I'd highly recommend it. It's very, very good. Okay, so the last of the homebrew games that I'm going to show is Run and Gun, which was released a few years ago by Kirtland Handley again, and it's called Run and Gun. It's a kind of a platform shooter style game where you can actually switch between characters. Each character is slightly different. One of the characters can only sort of jump so far and the other one can shoot further type of thing, so you need to be a little bit strategic and switch between them and what one best suits the part of the game that you're on or part of the level. And it's quite addictive, really good stuff. Pretty short, right enough, but it's really good. I would love to have seen this back in the heyday in the Commodore 64. I'm just amazed that there's so many great games still getting produced for the C64, and what we're going to do is have a quick look at itch.io and show some of the homebrew scene that's currently going on. So the Commodore 64 homebrew scene can be seen quite clearly on itch.io, and there's so many titles still getting made. Even high budget games like Sam's Journey, which is pretty expensive for a Commodore 64 game, and there's obviously a lot of free titles that I've just shown on this video here, but there's a lot of great games, phenomenal style games still being made. There's a few RPG style games recently released like Lycia, and it's really phenomenal. I'm just blown away with some of the quality of the games that are still being made to this day, and it's still ongoing. There's still titles that are going to be released probably for the next few years. It is so impressive. Obviously there's a lot of games free on here which I've already shown in this video. There's a lot of sort of remakes, demakes. We've even recently seen a version of Sonic the Hedgehog on the Commodore 64, and it's almost a direct copy of the Master System game. Now Cytronic Software are a company that release a lot of games on the Commodore 64, and a lot of these actually see the light of day on the Commodore 64 Mini, and there's a few here that are actually maybe cost about $2, $3, $4 or such, which actually got released for free in some of the firmware updates on the C64 Mini. One of them being Hessian, which is pretty good. There's another couple down here which, if I recall, you've got Barnsley Banjer was one of them. There also was Soulless, and they were absolutely fantastic games which were released for free on firmware updates. Not sure if we'll see them, I really hope we do. But yeah, thanks for watching the video guys. Please like, subscribe, catch you in the next one. Bye for now.